it feels like there needs to be some sort of vendor code of conduct here because the cybersecurity community and IT community in general is quite risk adverse, and uptime is incredibly important to their organizations. And vendors keep slipping things into updates that people don't want. And there is another excuse and another pushback on this whole thing from the IT community. I rebooted a personal laptop yesterday with a Windows 11 update, and now I have Copilot. I didn't want Copilot. I can't remove Copilot. My answer to avoid it is only do not update this computer. Right? That's the hot fixing thing is exactly what I want. I don't want to be forced to a new version that my features change, my user interface changes, my functionality changes in some way that I may not be prepared for or may not desire. I just want the safety and security that goes along with the update to make sure that I'm safe to continue to use my device. And I don't know that we've come to a point that we have to earn that trust, I think, back from the community because people, and I'm not trying to pick on just Microsoft here, it just happened to be the one that just happened to me. So bad timing, Microsoft. Stop putting Copilot in all my stuff. But that's a thing. And the community, I don't think, trusts us when we say, don't worry, that this won't interrupt your connections. Don't worry, we're not going to introduce things that you don't want into the product. And I think there's a lot of room for us to earn that trust back from the IT and the security community that we can do this successfully, reliably. Because that was my other fear when one of our competitors had an outage this summer with a lot of endpoints that made some headlines. It was like, is this going to make people hesitant to consume updates, which we know are so important for this, especially these edge devices that are hanging out there being attacked every day. And fortunately, I have not seen a negative reaction that I feared in this case, so that's good. But uh, do we get back to version numbers? Because I mean, like that was how people handled this in the past. It was like, I'm on version 11, I don't want version 12. And then we got into this cloud mode where I don't even know what version of Chrome I'm running because it just does it. And I don't think about it, which is great from a security perspective. I don't have browser problems the way I used to. Do you know, this physical box that I think about as something running a firmware version, do we move, is one of the ways we help people get used to this new idea is to get rid of that version number? Like, do we go cloud on them? And it's just like, no, it's perpetually up to date and safe to use.
So I think we're going to want to preserve version numbers as an industry. So I'll start there. And whether we put them in the foreground or whether we keep them in the background, that's something that I think will probably evolve over time. The SaaS model is more versionless, but of course they're backed by versions. And where the version becomes interesting to the owner is when it comes to their concern about control of the environment. There's a tight coupling between the desire or the need for control and the interest in the version number. So if we could get to an operating model where, let's take a firewall, for example, components of the code could be updated, but the firewall will run without interruption for a period of time, that doesn't begin to violate the expectations of control because there's probably a lot less interest in what particular version of an IPS scanning engine am I running
Yeah.
than what particular version of the firmware am I running on this thing, because the division is this going to be interruptive to me? Is it going to change the general behavior of the way the device works? So I would put that into the category of control and need for control. Some industries need it more than others. Some particular users expect it more than others. But that I think will give us a kind of a dial to be able to either dial up or dial down the obviousness of the version of the thing that you're running. When
Does SBOM play a role there? Does that alleviate some concerns that we're just revving the OpenSSL library, which is really important for the cryptographic security of the product. We're not actually tinkering with the version.
Yeah, it's this begins to descend into levels of detail of software stacks that the vast majority of users probably aren't interested in. But there's maybe 20,000 enterprises out there who are exceedingly concerned with this, and they're reading SBOMs from all of their vendors. Some buyers within the defense sector, for example, might be concerned with that sort of thing as well. But it's not a broad interest today. Now, the other side of that, I think transparency is a very helpful thing. an essential thing even. So I think all vendors should be either getting ready to or should already be publishing SBOM so that they can provide that kind of transparency, because there are buyers out there who are concerned about the stacks and they want to see the particular version of OpenSSL that you're using. The examples that you gave about let's call it bloatware. So giving me a thing that I don't want because it's strategically important to you as a company, and I'm speaking to other vendors, that's not necessarily helpful.
AOL on the desktop, right?
Yeah, yeah. So now, wearing my vendor hat, sometimes you come up with this novel capability, and you really want to make sure that your customers know about it. And then you're challenged with, well, do we turn that thing on by default, or do we do a marketing campaign and hope that they read that email that we sent them or see that blog post that we did on the website? The uptake of new features, when you leave it to the discretion of the user, tends to be lower than most vendors want. That's a broad sweeping generalization, but that becomes the motivation for why vendors turn these things on. But it does begin to erode trust, because many consumers have the kind of reaction that you did. I don't want Copilot on Notepad. I just want Notepad, right? That makes sense. So finding that right balance, and ultimately what it comes down to is give the user control. Let the user opt in or opt out to that sort of thing. There has to be a consent component to it, basically, when it comes to what I would categorically call bloatware. Now, when it comes to something like a hotfix that is a security update that is designed to keep you protected from an inevitable kind of an attack, that's something where I think the vendor probably has the obligation, but they can't just do it without making it well known to the end user that they're doing that sort of thing. And putting it in the EULA is good, except most users don't read EULAs. So one of the things that can help advance this would be making it normal for buyers of this kind of equipment to have a conversation with their vendor about how they treat critical updates. And what is the default setting for pushing down a critical update? If there's a new vulnerability for some component of code that you're running and it's open source and you've updated it and it's under wide attack on the internet, are you going to automatically protect me, or do I need to do something about that? Like that should be normalized in the conversations that buyers are having with their vendors. And when that level of conversation occurs, and there is a clear expectation, and the customer has control over how it's going to behave, then there's no violation of consent, there's no violation of trust.
Yeah, I think I know I'm not the typical home user by any means, but I've actually dropped products that I use in my home network and lab and picked up other ones simply because of how the product gets updates and how I'm notified about them. Like Microsoft has created a cadence. I know on the second Tuesday, I'm going to reboot the domain controller. I know that. It's just in my calendar. I don't have to think about it. Now, sometimes there's an out-of-band hotfix. That's different. That happens. That's a hotfix, I guess, more of a kind of thing, an out-of-band patch from Microsoft. But, there's a cadence, and it's something I've always criticized Apple for. I don't have any idea when a Mac's going to get an update. And I find out about it on social media, which is not great. And I prefer products that send me an email notification that there's an update available. And I really prefer ones that have release notes that tell me that there's security things and what they are, not numerous security fixes were applied. Oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder if they're numerously something I should care about.